Hello, once again, and welcome back. My name is Avery Clark, and today I'll be going over SQL Assignment 6. SQL Assignment 6 has two main parts. The first is actually covered in my Assignment 5 video. That's the checkout process and all the updates that go with that. Yeah, for Assignment 5, I went a little overboard and I finished the checkout process and I went over that code in detail in that video. So for the first part of Assignment 6, if you just go to the 18-minute mark of Assignment 5, the 6 minutes after that are all about the checkout process and all of that. So the second part that I'll be going over in this video are the stored procedures we created for reporting, three mandatory, and the other ones were up to us to create. So I'm going to go over the first mandatory one, which retrieves some data based on the guest ID. So here's the stored procedure. We are grabbing the guest ID. We are summing the subtotal as total revenue. That means that the column title in the table that's created by the select statement when we retrieve the data is going to be called total revenue. And then we're going to count up the reservation ID, and we're going to call that row, or sorry, that column number of bookings, obviously from the reservations table, and where guest IDs are equivalent. So we're just going to get the number of bookings where guest ID 1, where the guest ID equals the same guest ID. And we're going to group by guest ID. So let's just run that. Here we go. Here's the guest IDs, total revenue, number of bookings. So you can see these are the column names. Guest ID doesn't need one. We need one for these two because we're like doing something to them. If there was no sum and it was just subtotal, then this would come up as subtotal. But since we're summing it, there's not going to be a title for that column unless we give it one. And then we've got data per room. So we're grouping by room ID here. And it's the same for the other columns as the last store procedure. We're grabbing the subtotal as total revenue, the sum of all the subtotals. And we're counting up the number of reservations as the number of bookings. So let's go ahead and run that. And here we go. We've only had these 3 rooms booked. This has been booked twice. Total revenue has been increased accordingly because of this sum function there. And now we have data per room type. Same total revenue, same number of bookings, except we're selecting room type ID, and that's what we're grouping by as well. Oh, misclick there. Let's run this query. There we go. We've only had 2 room types booked. This room type's been booked 3 times. Total revenue increased accordingly. So let's talk a little bit about why these stored procedures are important. These 3 we've been over so far. For example, this one for room type ID, it's going to let us know which of our room types are more popular, the ones that create the most revenue. Maybe if we're expanding, we want to look at this to see which room types do we make more of, which room types do we not make more of. Maybe we have a room type that really, excuse me, really doesn't sell, and we could transform it into a different type of room that we can look at the data and see will generate much more revenue. With data per room, that's similar. If there's one room that is very popular for some reason and people are always asking, oh, but can I be in room 102? Then maybe you need to look into what's going on in room 102 or something like that. And then data per customer. It's always useful to know who your most loyal customers are, rewards programs, that sort of thing. Stick them on an email list, flood their inbox. Yeah, just for marketing, it's good to know who's going to spend the most money at your establishment. And then moving on to the stored procedures that I came up with, we have data per month. This one's pretty simple. It's the same summing the subtotals as total revenue and counting the number of reservations as the number of bookings. But we are grouping by and selecting the month from the check-in date. And we're saying date name because I don't just want month 1, month 2, month 3. I want January, February, etc., just to make it much easier to read. So if we run this, here we go, February, January, March total revenue, number of bookings. And this would obviously be useful uh, for running a hotel. That's very seasonal. I mean, we could make some predictions about what we would see if this had a bunch more real data in it. We would see, spikes during the school year. We'd see spikes during football season. And so this, excuse me, this store procedure is a way to check that data. And then if we want to increase uh, our prices during football season, maybe to capitalize on some of that increased demand, or if we want to decrease our prices during the summer, because I'm assuming just for a realistic hotel in a college town, there'd be very few bookings in summer. But we could see that in the data, and we could decrease our prices accordingly. Okay. And now we have extra services per customer. So we're grouping by that guest ID, and we're summing up their extra service fees as their total number of extra services. So this will be all the extra services they've bought at our establishment over their lifetime. And then we're going to take the sum of the extra service fees, divide it by the count of reservations, and that's the average extra services. There might be an easier way to do this calculation, but this works just fine, so that's how I did it. And then the rest of the code's the same. It's from the reservations table, grouping by guest ID. So if we go ahead and run this, like that. Here we go. We can see total extra services and their average extra services. Pull this down. And yeah, that's obviously going to be telling us which of our customers are purchasing the most in extra services, which is going to be an important part of our revenue. Much like the store procedure to get information by guest based on like total revenue and such, this is going to be useful for finding out who our most loyal customers are. We know to market to those people more. Also, if they wanted to make like a point system, every 10 extra services, you get one free. These would be the people you would market that towards because they purchase a lot of extra services. You could, excuse me, yeah, just loyalty programs, that sort of thing. And then we have days and average stay per customer. So again, grouping by guest ID and summing up the number of days they've stayed as total days. So not the number of times they've stayed, but the number of actual days total. And we're averaging that as the average stay length. Everything else is the same, executing that. So we can say which of our guests stay the longest and how long their stays are. And how we would use this maybe is, guest one has stayed much more than everyone else, and they've stayed longer. We could ask them, what do you like about the hotel? We can gain feedback from them because clearly this is a very loyal customer and they like our hotel. We could also, offer discounts to our members who've stayed the longest. Maybe we make a platinum membership where if you get a certain number of days per year, you can get some bonuses, get some free extra services, something like that. Yeah, so these are the store procedures for reporting. They're all very important. We slice the data in different ways. We can take different lessons from the data. And that's about all. Thanks for your time.